Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Meena, you want to do it?
Yeah. Om Parthaya Pradibodhitham Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Matye Mahabharatam Advaidamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashatyayinim Ambatvam Anushandadami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadvekshinim नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः
Suvarna.
प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचारूणमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्।
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः।
So we were actually finishing the 10th shloka last time, and I wanted to actually share with you a presentation which, when we were part of the study group, since Suresh Vemuri is there, Madhuri is here, I don't know whether you remember this, but I thought I'm going to show this. I don't remember who put this presentation together at that time when we did the chapter 13, but it has some beautiful concepts. I think it is one of somebody from our study group, Madhuri, maybe you might be able to remember. So I'm going to share this right now and I want to show you. Second, I think I have to open. I have to get out of this. So does anybody remember this presentation? A long, long time ago, more than 15 years ago, okay? We were doing this in our study group. So one of us put together this. So we were doing the shloka number 13, the same shloka 10 from chapter 13 which is what we are doing today, and which is Asaktir Anabhishwangaha Putra Dara Grihadishu Nityam Cha Samachittatvam Ishta Nishtopa Patishu. So, these are the values that we talked about. We already finished Asakti, and then Anubhishwangaha Putradhara Grihadishu. We were just completing it. And then Samachittatvam and Nityam Cha Ishta and Anishta Upapatishu. So this is the one which we were going to do. So this particular value, which is Putradhara Grihadishu, which is really telling us that in life today, when we think about what are the attachments, because we said we did asakti last time. So sakti is not strength here. Sakti means an attachment, and asakti is detachment. So last week, when we discussed about asakti, and we started discussing about this anabhishwangaha. Anabhishwangaha is the non-identification of the self with son, children, wife, spouse, house, and other objects. Okay, which is Putra Dhara Grihadishu. And the whole idea being that we spent a lot of time in this area. Putra Dhara meaning wife, and of course it can mean spouse, Dhara, Griha, house, and Adi, all these other material objects. And all these relationships are very, very fragile. Anytime these things can disappear from our lives, but we spend a lot of time. So, our fragile in a life packed with volatile situations, it's natural to encounter desirable and undesirable results by which agitations are created. So, these are the things which really bring about, our highs and lows in life. And so, the Lord adds this value of being even-minded or samachittatvam. Okay, that is this other value in samam chittatvam, and which is nityam, all the time. And so here, you have two beautiful images here. One of them, of course, is our lotus leaf. So can somebody explain why, what is the relevance of this lotus leaf here in this particular shloka?
And
No attachment.
Water on the leaves doesn't stay there. It doesn't
Right.
have attached to the leaves here.
Correct. So the lotus it grows up in murky waters, right? But
Yeah.
even in the murky waters, like, it remains untouched by any of the dirt. The dirt in the water doesn't stick to it. And not only that, even the water doesn't stick to the lotus leaf. And that is how this word nityam is supposed to mean. Nityam is even-mindedness that is untouched. Well, untouched is not really the meaning, but nityam, the attitude of being completely even-minded in the midst of any kind of highs and lows that happens. And that is what. And Pujya Swami Tejomananji's quote is also beautiful. If your essential nature is to be bound, then you'll always be bound only. But our journey is from bondage to liberation. The idea being that for us in our life, these things, which is Putra, Dhara, Griha, these are the ones which tends to limit us, and which we kind of have this imaginary, illusory bondage. And so the quotation here is clear, which says that as long as I think that I'm attached to all these things around me, I will never be able to get out of bondage. So what is moksha? What is liberation? Liberation is in our mind, it is not physical liberation. So many times, people say that, oh, when you die, you are liberated. That is not true. But it is in the mind that even today, when I'm living in this world, how can I live this life of detachment? Last week, I think I had this beautiful quote where detachment is not something that physical, but it is something which is in our mind. And so anyway, so this is the entire shloka's meaning, when you see the shloka by itself, you are able to see how they're all connected together, which is non-detachment, non-identification, and the ability to be even-minded in the midst of everything that seemingly seem to bind us. Okay. So here, what is detachment and non-identification? So asakti, or is the sakti is the attachment, and asakti is the ability of being unattached. And in one of Gurudev's shlokas, he talks about what do we mean by an attachment. So this attachment is not a physical attachment. It is again the notion in my mind that who am I? Who is this I? And what is this I want? So attachment is I plus I want this. So now we are calling this attachment, but I know in today's world, we call this also an addiction, right? So when appreciation for an object increases, repeated appreciation, that could lead to attachment. So in the beginning, as we always give this example of coffee, the first time when I drink coffee, I really don't know what the taste is, but it's just the repeated thing of having coffee gets us more and more addicted to it, right? So that when we repeatedly contemplate that there's happiness in an object, the mind becomes attached to it. So that is how the whole aspect of addiction really starts. So Abhishwangaha. Abhishwangaha is this identification, self-identification. Anabhishwangaha is the absence of that identification. So quality by which one superimposes others, good or bad, onto oneself. Anabhishwangaha is the opposite of it, not identifying or superimposing. Okay, so Anabhishwangaha is... so what are those abhishwangaha? So what are those qualities by which superimposes, which we take upon ourselves? So this shloka, which is from chapter 2, Dhyayate Vishayan Pumsaha Sangat Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bijayate. So repeated appreciation could lead to attachment. So, and that attachment can lead to desire or kamaha, and that desire itself, when it gets multiplied, leads to anger. Meaning that when that desire is not fulfilled, if somebody comes in between a desire and our object of desire, okay, so that leads to krodha. So that attachment leads to that fear and desire. Here is say desire, when obstructed, leads to this. And this example is beautifully given, which is Dhritarashtra's attachment to his son blinded him so much that, it caused a big war. And so how do we, what is the example here? So how do we live in this world? I mean, obviously all of us are grihasthas, and we go through this. So when one connects or superimposes to a source which is not complete or happy, then it does not make sense. For example, we clap or praise a group of kids performing. However, when one kid performs, one is tense and they tries to superimpose the applause of failure as one's own effort. So their praise is my praise. So we tend to blame, raise questions. All these things happen in our own lives, right? So slowly and slowly, we start to develop a deep identification. So the idea being that when I start to identify, that is where this ladder of fall starts, right? So idea is, how can I be detached even in the midst of the life that I'm dealing with, keeping in mind that through each and every attachment identification, I get a certain amount of happiness, but I mistake that happiness to be the permanent one. So one cannot really expect that infinite happiness from finite objects, etc. So because we ourselves are very finite, very temporary. So how can I expect to have a permanent happiness from all this, right? So keeping that in mind, this shloka really is trying to say that, to have that non-identification and non-attachment. And when this happens, it is easy to have the even-mindedness. But of course, when we come to Nityam Samachitattvam, we'll discuss a little more. So what are those attachments here? And this is what, in a very pictorial way, it explains. So putra, a son or daughter, they're considered to be the future source of joy. In the case of son, considered as torchbearer and the one to perform the pitra karma. So that's why the word putra is given here, because in the olden days, it was believed that, and of course, even now, it is the son who does that karma, pitra karmas. So therefore, the thought was that I should have a son was considered very important, right? So Abhishwanga, so putra, and then spouse. Of course, it's not just dara meaning of course wife, but then it is spouse here, because the spouse is considered the source of joy and the source of security. And then griha, which is until I buy my first home. I mean, for all of us too, when we came to US, uh, we were living in an apartment, and then the first thing was I have to buy a house. I have to be an owner of this. Only then I felt that, I was secure, right? So, and slowly and slowly we kind of become attached to it. And it's hard to think that someday I'm going to let go of this house, right? And then, of course, other objects like my car, the first car, we always remember our first car, right? And then our pets. Pretty soon, I mean, during COVID time, we know how much the attachment to pets became very important. And then sense of present, current joy, holding on to situations and not understanding that life is in a state of flux. So, you can see how, I mean, at this age, for all of us, we are able to understand this because, we are reflecting upon it. We have gone through it. Now we understand that these are all temporary aspects. So anything else you think we can add to this list from today's world? If we have to rewrite the Bhagavad Gita, would we add anything more to this list of things which is already mentioned? He's also explained Adi, Adishu indicating that today, I mean, it can be the iPhone, the latest phone gadgets. Phone is now as important as Griha, right? So having said, yeah, go ahead.
Sunita, Abhiswangaha, I mean, initially it is needed because to have a positive goal or something like that, and then we have to let go, right? We have to learn how to let go also because we transfer from the beginning also we teach kids little children each grade we let go the first grade and move on to the second grade, third grade, then school, college, everything like that, right? Even in the family life also we will each and every stage is different, so we let go some of the things. So I don't know,
So the question though is, it is not, we don't, and this is, of course, it's a good thing to debate right now, is from the beginning, how do we educate our children to have a detached attachment?
detach.
Because at some point you have to detach yourself, right? If you attach yourself, I mean, this is, of course, here it is about excessive attachment. You're right, we have to have
Like,
attachment, but
yeah,
what we are cautioning
right.
is the excessive attachment.
Yeah. So, mom, the child will leave mom and go to school. and get attached to the friends also. I don't know, like, I'm
Right?
just, yeah, simple things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anybody must be having more thoughts on that. But
No, I think the excessive, that is the part which needs to be kept in mind, but that doesn't come out in
Exactly.
commentary here.
Mhm.
Exactly. So it is the excessive amount of attachment.
Yeah.
You're right that we have to be attached to a goal, without the attachment. So attachment is, saying that we have to be passionate about a goal, you know.
Yeah.
Without that passion, how can we ever fight for a country or fight to rise up above all troubles,
Situations. Yeah.
about all obstacles? So for that, we need to have that attachment. That is true. A sense of ownership. So we need to have that sense of ownership. Without that sense of ownership, we won't be able to move ahead. That is true. And it is the same thing in fact, in all of them, right? Without some amount of that ownership, this is my child. I need to protect my child. This is my house. I need to make sure my house is maintained well. All these things are definitely needed, but we have to be cautious. We have to have this, and that's why this last sentence here is very important. I have to recognize at the end of the day that everything what we have in life which we are enjoying are very temporary, very infinite, very finite, and that there is something else which is, I mean, we are looking for happiness. So it's a powerful statement. It is also a statement which can come only after reflection. The happiness that I think I'm seeking from all these objects, all these things, is not really in the objects. That happiness that I'm seeking is actually me, myself. I am that infinite happiness. That happiness is not in the finite objects. So that shift in our mind has to happen at some point for us to be less stressed out.
So the even-mindedness, I guess that's where you can say it allows for some attachment.
Correct. So that is the whole idea of how to get detached and then non-identify. By being that even-minded and maintaining that balance. So it is not that we should not have that emotion. Of course, when my grandchild brings home a small trophy or something, I cannot say, oh no, beta, this is not what you're supposed to. No, that is, you have to show that emotion. You have to enjoy the moment. You have to make the child feel good, all that. But through experience and through the knowledge, I need to understand that that is temporary for me, not for the child.
Everything in a limit.
No, not just the limit. I mean, at the level where we are, if I can come to a point where I can say that what I'm enjoying even now is not that infinite happiness. What I'm enjoying right now is the temporary happiness. It's like when I put a candy in my mouth and I enjoy the sweet for that moment, and I know it is not going to be there 5 minutes later, correct?
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
So I
In
need to have that
Ramayana.
kind of a mindset.
Yeah. When Rama could not, like, for the Pattabhishekam,
Yeah.
one day before, whole Ayodhya was celebrating, and
Mm-hmm.
in a minute, over the night, he had to go to the forest, so he doesn't even show anything like difference.
Correct. So, nityam cha samachitatvam ishta anishta upapatishu. So, here to understand that whatever I get in life, it's either desirable or undesirable. You know, that's how life is. The whole day, I mean, it's snowing sometimes, it's raining sometimes, it's sunny sometimes, you know. I cannot say that I don't need the snow. I'm going to run away to India, but here you're going to face the heat. And especially the place where I am, you're going to face a lot of rain. And I cannot say that I'm going to run away from rain and I'm going to go to Chennai, which I do that. So, but then when I go to Chennai, it's very hot, you know. So somewhere all the time we do face situations which are both, like likable to us or uncomfortable for us. So the key is to be even-minded all the time. It's hard, but if we contemplate that I am Atma, I'm changeless, that will help develop the same. I know it sounds very, very powerful, but that is the truth. If I recognize that here, this person who is going through all this is um, is actually somebody who is changeless, not this changing person, We are going through so much of changes, but we still keep on identifying ourselves with the changing part of it. I need to change my perspective to bring the identification to the changeless aspect, which is that Atman in me. So here in this next, we have a beautiful shloka from Bhajagovindam. Satsangatve nisangatvam, nisangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nishchalatatvam, nishchalatatve jivan muktihi. So we saw the ladder of fall, which is that dhyayatu vishayam pumsaha. And these are some things here which says, be steadfast in the performance of your duty, abandoning attachment for success and failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So, and do nothing, meaning do work without creating vasanas. So being in the moment, doing what we have to do is the right thing. And then detaching and attaching ourselves from the fruits of action. So again, anything and everything I do, doing it with not expecting that it will lead to something, and then the sense of attachment is to be liquidated. So slowly and slowly, at least in this particular thing here, the last part of it, the first three, it's hard to give up. But this part of it, slowly we can start to give up. The Adishu, to make a list of whatever the things that we are attached to and see how we can give up. And Nimitta Matram, this is beautiful from chapter 11, right? To be an instrument, to always understand that I'm here, I'm just an instrument in the Lord's hands. And then from Satsangatvam, non-attachment develops, and non-attachment. I really wonder if this presentation, which I came across as I was doing this, was done by our Suresh, Suresh Rama. I have to send it to him and ask him, did he do this? But like I said, because it was so beautiful, I thought I have to share it with you, And then this shloka, which is Brahman, no, this from Bhagavad Gita, which is Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate nasapapena padmapatra mivam basa. This is again that lotus leaf example. And in Bhajagovindam also we have this shloka, right? So again, from Bhajagovindam, we have this shloka, which is, it's about, Balastavat Krida Saktaha Tarunastavat Taruni Saktaha. That is the shloka here, which is saying that in childhood, we are attached to toys. And then in the youth, we are attached to, the age, then old age passes away, but where do I have time to think about that ultimate goal? And then who's your wife, who's your son? This is also a very beautiful shloka from Bhajagovindam. So something to think about. Second. Second. So yogastha kuru karmani and everything. So anyway, I just thought since I had this, I wanted to share this thing with you. And now we go to the other one.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Yeah, the other sloka in Bhagavad Gita is karmanyevadikaraste ma phalesh kadachana ma karma phale bhutu mate sangoshna karmani. So like says don't attach to the karmas, so which also leads to detachment in a one way.
Leads to detachment in the sense of it leads to non-attachment to the fruits of action.
Right.
Right?
Because we denounce all the karma phala.
Correct.
So, and then like nimitta matram. Right, that's
Bhavasavyasachi. So yes, that is being, so that's why these 4 or 5 shlokas is so beautiful.
And and we do all the karmas for the for the sake of the putradara gruhadishu, right?
Correct.
That's right. So
exactly. Yeah. Once again.
From chapter 2, La Krishna is saying the same thing over and over again and again.
Which any particular shlokas comes to your mind, Meena, apart from the chapter 2, which I put today, which is shloka number 48 was one. And of course, he talked about 47. And then the ladder of fall, which we talked about right now.
When he talked about karmani vadikare, then it struck me. It's from chapter 2. So from chapter 2, Lord Krishna keeps saying over and over again and again, have detached attachment. Yeah.
Correct. So abhishwangaha, you can actually translate it to an excessive attachment. No doubt, like I said, we have come into this world and we get all these things, son, wife, house, etc. But an abhishwangaha is really, anabhishwangaha then is having a kind of a detached attachment. So he's not, Krishna is not saying that, we should not have this attachment, but the idea is how can I have a lack of excessive attachment towards my family? So we obviously should have this care and everything. And I wanted to point out this beautiful story of Tulsi Das. Does anybody remember the story of Tulsi Das? So,
yes,
Tulsi, yeah, go ahead, Anand.
Tulsidas he gets married, and then he gets attached to his wife. He loves her so much, and to see her, he comes like from quite far, and there's a heavy rain and floods and stuff like that. So he still swims and then does whatever needs to reach her, and then he goes, reaches her house, and then his wife looks at him. His condition is like such a way, and then she says, "Why are you so attached? Instead of this, you should need to attach to Bhagavan." Then at that moment he gets the realization, and it changes.
That's right. I mean, the story goes that even, his wife was staying in the top floor of, she goes to her parents' house, right? He goes to see his wife in his parents' home and in her parents' home. And so she was staying in the top room or something. And he's wondering how is he going to climb. Then he sees something on the side of the side of the house. It looks like a rope, and so he uses that rope to climb, but actually it is a snake. So he was so attached to his wife that he couldn't even bear. And he was so, I mean, this is really this Abhishwangaha which we were talking about, really an excessive night. And so, as Anand said, I mean, um, when he's told that he has to transform that sensual obsession that he had for her to intense spiritual devotion. And as we all know, Tulsidas is the one who wrote Hanuman Chalisa, right? And then Ramcharitramanas, beautiful texts. And so it's a story about how a really intense love can be transformed into, can be directed to spiritual devotion. So I thought that was important here. So I think for us as a kind of a sadhana, we really have to think about how do we differentiate this attachment and excessive attachment. And as I mentioned earlier, this whole aspect of I plus I want. Whenever I think, and this is also something which Anandagiri, he writes on sub-commentary on Shankaracharya's commentary for Bhagavad Gita, where he gives a beautiful explanation on really differentiating this attachment to this excessive attachment. So, the minute we say that, like especially in the case of Putra Dhara, where we say, this child is my child, he belongs to me and only to me. And whenever I use that kind of notion to anything and everything, and I claim that this thing belongs only to me, that nobody can touch it, and all that. And this, of course, we have even from a young age. Sometimes, we are so attached to a pen. If we lose a pen, we feel the whole, that us, we become superstitiously attached to a pen, right? Even for an exam, we want to use exactly that pen. So that kind of a notion is what we have to we have to get rid of, which is this excessive attachment. So some kind of leading questions for us to think about here. I thought some sadhana questions. Are we really, really attached strongly? How attached am I to my own family or anybody in my life? Something to ponder upon. So what is this reason for the strong attachment? And do we believe that it's possible to have a loving, healthy relationship without this excessive attachment? And how do we really think about this word love? Is love an excessive attachment, or how do we define the word love? So just wanted to put these things here. If any of you want to have a discussion on this one, we can take a minute or two to do that. And have you understood how this value is linked to Vedanta? I think the link to Vedanta is Anand brought out this, how when Tulsidas was told to direct that love, what he had for his wife, to the devotion to the Lord, then we can understand how this value is linked to that aspect of Vedanta or oneness, or,
Hari Om. The
Hari
second
Om.
question, what is the reason for this strong attachment? You get attached to a mother or your child if they are very sick, that
Yes.
because they need that extra care.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get over that sort of attachment?
No, the thing is, of course, when the child is sick, the mother has to do something about it, because that is why the child has come into the mother's life. So the mother is a custodian for the child. So she has to direct her full attention to taking care of the child. And she also has to recognize that, that Bhagwan is there behind to help her and give her all the resources to help the child.
Mhm.
But we also have to recognize that we can only do so much, but I have to do that best for the child at that moment. So this value, this knowledge that we are reading here about Putradara Grahadishu, Anabhishwangaha, is important for us to learn when I'm not going through the crisis, so that when I'm going through the crisis, I understand that my time at that moment is given to the child only to do whatever I can to help the child to get the right medicine and everything. If I have this abhishwangaha or excessive attachment, I will actually, that excessive attachment comes as a kind of a veil in front of me, and it prevents me from doing the best I can for the child.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's just at the time of crisis, right? When the child, the mother or the parents, they have a very crucial role in raising the child, and they have to be there for the child all the time. Otherwise, the child is a broken person. It's like that's your duty. You are a parent for a reason. So,
Right.
you have to lead them the right way during tough times, whatever, it doesn't even have to be tough times, whatever. You have to be there for the child. The child needs to know that you're there for them, and you have to be there. That's your duty.
Yeah.
So whether it's love or excessive love or whatever, it is what it is that guides the child and makes them feel comfortable and a well-raised, well-rounded person. So
You're right. It is not just when it is a crisis, it is all the time. But at the same time, the shloka is trying to say that, try to recognize and that's why that lotus example is given, which is
yeah,
also very important,
this
is,
Padmapatra Nivamasa.
yeah, the idea is that even the child, I mean, and we can talk about it now in this forum, I think, but not always and everywhere, because people may not understand it for what it is trying to say. The idea is to recognize the finitude in things and to direct our mind to understand that everything in this world is temporary and to seek the one which is permanent. So that's actually the message that is coming out of here. It is not about not having an attachment.
Yeah,
It is,
Mhm.
yeah.
I understand. Yeah. Even otherwise, no worries. The children here, at least I don't know about how the children in India, but here, once they're 18, they think they're adults and they're out of this thing. And, so that
Right.
naturally the things they do make you really detached from them. So that's okay. So,
Yes.
yeah. So,
But are they detached with Vedantic detachment is a different question.
whatever, it leads to some detachment, and maybe then it will slowly we'll get into the Vedantic detachment. But yes,
Correct,
yeah, the kind
exactly.
of like yeah,
In,
and not
in,
all kids, but I'm talking from my experience and my kids, and I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, I see in US that happens like so so adults as a parents we know, I mean, know that yeah, it's going to happen. So
Yep,
Yeah.
you're right. In US, you are pushed to that detachment rather quickly. You don't have to wait till 60 to be detached.
Mhm.
So this, nityam cha samachittatvam, which is constant equanimity towards desirable ishta, anishta, upapatishu, undesirable results. So this beautiful, I think we looked at it in that other presentation, Yogastha Kuru Karmani, Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya, Siddha, Asiddha, Samo Bhutva, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. So the same thing being talked about here. And this other one also, which is Mai Chananya Yogena, Bhakti Rabya Vicharini, Vivika Desha Sevitvam, Aratir Jana Samsati. This is, we're coming into, in fact, the next shloka itself. So the points of reflection for this particular thing is, of course, do we practice equanimity with regards to both favorable and unfavorable in our life all the time, and try to remember a situation in the past when I got unnaturally angry with regard to someone or something. If such a situation happened, would we want to deal with it more objectively? So the idea of again being, having a very objective view about things. And do we see a value in dealing with negative situations more objectively than through a viewpoint of our own likes and dislikes? So Nityam cha Samachitatvam obviously, gets directed mainly because of my own view of things. If I'm biased about some things, about a certain situation, about a certain person, then obviously my interaction will lead to this things which are either desirable or undesirable. And it's easy to see the value in being more objective with negative, but do we agree that positive situations also require a calm and composed mind? When things are going very well for us, we tend to forget everything. We, of course, enjoy the whole experience, but we don't recognize that that is also going to change at some point. And question is, are we ready for it? Am I ready for accepting both things which are, not happening that well and positive situation with the same mind? And of course, that final one is as a sadhana, in many ways, I feel a grihastha life itself is a sadhana. Every situation that comes to our life, especially as with our children, when they are growing up, that whole period of bringing up the child until the child leaves the home is a huge sadhana for us. And if this kind of a knowledge is there in the beginning itself, it'll really help in so many ways, right? To deal with things, because there's so many, of course, it's not just a child's life, our own lives, whatever we go through in our own work lives and everything, a huge sadhana there. So question is, what do we need to do to have that calm and balanced mind as we're going through the different phases? And the last one, of course, what are our weaknesses with regards to developing this value? So this particular shloka, I think, completely really hits upon some things to ponder upon and seeing that, and as I said, this in terms of what needs to be done, I just need to understand that things will happen, but it is not the end all, It's happening again because of my previous karmas, previous things, whatever. That is very hard for us to accept it. So then, this idea of weakness.
So whoever is ready, I should say, it will happen for them. One individual
Yeah,
should be ready for that also, right?
correct.
Yeah,
Right.
we have to do sadhana too.
We have to continuously keep doing. That's one thing which is in our hands, is that sadhana.
Sadhana.
You know? Okay, so we'll continue with the shloka number 11, Mai Chananya Yogena, in next week. Oh, yeah, it's another beautiful shloka. We should be able to complete the whole thing next week. This is a very powerful, this Vivikta Desha Sevitvam part of it I really wanted to spend, but we'll do. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts that people want to share?
Hari Om, the sloka in by Shankaracharya starts with Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukman Karne in Bhaj Govinda. Like Sampraptya Sanhite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukman Karne. So I mean the starting itself, because an old Brahmin, an old man, he's reciting that Dukman Karne. So I mean the starting itself is saying like that's not going to save you, and then attached to the Govinda, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam. So just remembering the start with that detachment is the starting in Bhaj Govinda.
Yeah, Nahi Nahi Rakshati. Yeah, nothing will save you except this knowledge.
Hari Om. So
Yes, Amma.
we can also relate Ananya Chintanto Mam Ejana Bhari Vachate. That's what ultimately Krishna is saying. I mean, you leave all the attachment and always think about me, and I'm going to take care of you.
Correct.
So that also, I mean, each and every sloka, it's saying that. So we have to keep thinking in our mind and try to.
Correct. Yeah, the shlokas that we did today, which is this Asaktir Anubishwangaha Putradara Grihadishu, is reminding us of where our time is going today, which is, of course, in all this Putradara Grihadishu. And of course, understandably, it has to be done there. But the question for us, which we have to ask ourselves, is how long? How long am I going to be in this one? When am I going to find the time for myself to know who I am? So that is what is important in the shloka. On one hand, even though it's reminding us about our attachment, excessive attachments, all that, but actually it is nityam cha samchittatvam, ishtanishtopadpatishu, reminding ourselves that what is that nityam? Ultimately, the nityam is that Atman, which is my true nature, and I need to spend a lot of time reflecting upon it. And to slowly turn our minds inward. Yeah. So we'll finish at this point. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om. Thank you, Sunita ji.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sunita.